Good evening, everyone. We're truly glad to have you back with us tonight. Tonight, you'll hear two true stories involving children, caretakers, and things that simply don't make sense. If you've ever turned your head because you thought you saw something, or heard a toy speak with no batteries inside, you may want to keep the lights on. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more unsettling true tales just like this. Now, settle in. You're watching Sleep Horror Stories. I'm a 29-year-old woman living in the US, and what I'm about to share happened months ago while I was working for a family. I never used to believe in anything strange until this happened. I work as a nanny and currently take care of 3 kids. A 10-year-old girl, an 8-year-old boy, and the youngest just 4 years old. I've been with them since the youngest was a baby, and I've never had any major issues aside from your average toddler tantrums. I truly love these kids like they're my own. One day, their mom asked me to stay at the house for several days while she and her husband went on a trip. Everything was totally normal the first few nights. But on the 4th night, that's when everything started. We were watching cartoons until bedtime. The youngest always had the most energy and was the hardest to put to sleep. They were all sleeping in the same room since the 8-year-old's bedroom was being renovated. After what felt like forever, I finally got the little one to sleep. I went downstairs and turned on my favorite show. But only minutes later, I heard the alphabet toy, the one the youngest plays with. You know the type? It has lettered buttons and sings songs to help kids learn. I figured she had gotten up and started playing with it, which honestly annoyed me. So I got up from the couch, walked upstairs, and opened the bedroom door. All 3 kids were fast asleep. No toys on the floor. I opened the closet where all the toys are stored, but the alphabet toy wasn't there. I stood there confused because I knew I heard it coming from upstairs. And that's when I heard it again. But this time it was downstairs. The toy has a button that says, ABC, come sing with me, and then laughs a little. That's exactly what I heard. My stomach dropped. I froze in place from how deeply unsettling it was. I knew the toy hadn't been brought downstairs. I crept back down, and there it was on the dining room table. I felt a chill run through me because it definitely hadn't been there before. I picked it up and realized it was turned off. And right when I touched it again, it repeated, ABC, come sing with me. I freaked out. Took out the batteries. Just then, the 10-year-old called down to me from the top of the stairs, asking what was going on. I didn't want to scare her, so I said everything was fine and told her to go back to bed. I dropped the batteries in a kitchen drawer and went upstairs to check on them. The 10-year-old sat up in bed when she saw me. I sat next to her and told her everything was okay. She looked at me and said, "You're lying. You're scared." I tried to play it off. "No, I just had a bad dream, that's all." She slowly shook her head. "No, it was Sebastian. He scared you." "Who's Sebastian?" I asked. She rolled over and faced the wall. "Don't let him scare you. He just wants to play with the baby's toy." Now I was deeply confused and afraid. I didn't ask any more questions that night. I barely slept. The 10-year-old clearly knew something. She had heard the toy too. The next night, nothing weird happened until early morning. I heard whispering right outside my bedroom door. It was still dark. I rubbed my eyes and realized the sound was coming from the kids' room, right across from mine. I opened the door slowly. The 10-year-old was sitting on the floor, staring at me. "What are you doing up?" I asked. She said, "Nothing. It's way too early to be awake." "Who are you talking to?" She just looked at me blankly. "I heard you," I said. "I know you were talking to someone." With a serious face, she replied, "Sebastian's upset because you won't pay attention to him. He wants you to take care of him too." Goosebumps ran on my arms. I asked her to go back to bed, said we'd talk about it later. But she snapped, "No, Sebastian wants your attention now." Her tone was louder and angry. At that moment, the other two kids woke up. The 8-year-old groaned at his sister and said, "Tell Sebastian to leave her alone." I looked at all of them, stunned. "You guys all know about Sebastian?" They nodded. Thankfully, their parents were coming home later that day, because I was ready to get out of there. Later that day, I made lunch for the kids. The 10-year-old didn't want to eat what I made. Her two siblings had no issues. They were already outside playing in the yard. I asked her why she hadn't touched her plate, a bit frustrated by then. That's when she looked up at me, annoyed, and said, "Where's Sebastian's food?" Trying to keep it light, I decided to play along. "Oh yeah? And where is Sebastian now?" I asked. She smiled and answered, "He's holding your leg." A chill shot through my entire body. But I stayed calm and said, "Well, if Sebastian doesn't sit down, he's not getting any food." She giggled while looking right at the spot where I was standing. At this point, I just wanted their parents to get home. I served another plate and placed it exactly where she said he was sitting. "He says thank you," she told me. Strangely, that made me feel a little better. About 30 minutes later, their parents finally got home. Once they unpacked and said their hellos, the mom noticed the extra plate on the table and asked why it was there. The kids were still outside playing with their dad. So I lowered my voice and told her what had happened. That there was apparently a little boy in the house who wanted my attention. Her eyes widened. And then she said one word, "Sebastian." "Please tell me you're joking," I said, my voice trembling. She gently sat me down on the couch and asked me to tell her everything. When I told her about the toy, she remembered it had happened many times in the past too, but they had grown used to it over the years. I honestly don't know how. She explained that the previous family who lived in that house had a little boy who passed away there. A few weeks after the tragedy, the family moved out. Not long after, her family moved in. At that time, her daughter, the one who's now 10, was just a baby. As soon as she could talk and walk, she started acting like she was playing with someone. She would say things like, "Sebastian's sad. He wants to play, especially at night." At first, her mom thought it was just an imaginary friend. But over time, it felt too real. She remembered overhearing her daughter arguing with no one. And once, one of her toys disappeared, only to reappear days later inside the locked shed in the backyard. There was no way her daughter could have put it there. That's when they started digging into the house's history. They hoped nothing tragic had happened. But sadly, it had. They found out about the boy's death, though there wasn't much more information. The whole thing deeply disturbed them, but in the end, they decided to stay. Why? Because Sebastian wasn't hurting anyone. And it seemed like only their oldest daughter could communicate with him. The younger kids couldn't. But they grew up knowing that this ghost boy was just part of their sister's world. When she stayed up late talking or playing alone, they'd simply tell her to go to bed. And tell Sebastian it was time to sleep too. Their mom then told me something that gave me chills. She said her daughter had mentioned that Sebastian liked me since I started working for them. But she didn't want to scare me, so she kept quiet. But now, she said, it's clear Sebastian really wanted your attention. She added, "It would make us all very sad to see you go. But if you decide not to come back, we understand." It all felt so surreal. In all my years of working with these kids, I had never experienced anything like this. Maybe Sebastian had simply waited all these years, just wanting someone else to finally see him. And honestly, I couldn't leave. I love those kids too much. So I chose to stay. Since then, nothing too crazy has happened. Just small things. Objects moving. Toys showing up in places they shouldn't. little reminders that he's still here. I've started getting used to it, but that doesn't mean it's easy. I used to never believe in the supernatural, but sometimes you have to experience something for yourself, something that changes your entire perspective. My name's Michael. I'm in my 50s now, but every time I remember that night, I feel like I'm 16 all over again. Back then, my best friend Tyler and I were just trying to make some extra money. And we figured babysitting for neighborhood families would be a pretty easy gig. We put out an ad in the local paper, and surprisingly, we started getting calls. A lot of them. Pretty soon, we were babysitting all over town. Our only rule was that we always worked together, no solo jobs. Aside from the occasional bratty kid, it was actually fun. And the pay? Not bad for two teens. One night, we got a call from a woman who sounded desperate. She said she needed someone to watch her son that night, and she'd pay us double. We agreed. Tyler had his license, so he drove while I packed snacks for the night. The drive took longer than expected. When we finally got there, we found a note taped to the front door. It simply said, "The door's open." We looked at each other. Weird that she'd just leave the door unlocked, but whatever. We stepped inside, and were immediately hit by this musty, chemical smell, like a mix of mildew and industrial cleaner. The house was old. Hardwood floors that creaked with every step. We called out for the kid. No answer. We checked the kitchen, the upstairs hallway, the bathroom, even the laundry room. Then we headed to the bedrooms. Maybe he was already asleep? But no. No sign of a kid. No toys. No evidence that a child even lived there. We were heading back down the stairs, about to call the mom, when we saw a door, a narrow one, slightly open. Neither of us had noticed it before. Tyler pushed it open slowly, and that's when we saw it. Sitting on a small toddler bed was a life-size doll. It was just sitting there, staring straight at us. We froze. Neither of us said a word. Suddenly, the phone rang in the kitchen. We both jumped and rushed to answer it. I picked it up. It was the mom. She thanked us again for coming and told us to make sure her son was ready for bed soon. Then she added, his pajamas should be on his bed. I felt my stomach twist. "Wait, you mean the bed with the doll on it?" I asked. She hung up. Tyler looked at me. What did she say? I just stared at him. I think that woman believes the doll is her son. He laughed nervously until he realized I wasn't joking. "You want to leave?" he asked. "Yes." Now, we bolted for the front door. But just as we stepped onto the porch, Tyler froze. He pointed down. "What's that?" he asked. We walked closer. There, neatly surrounded by the trimmed grass, was a small gravestone. It read, "Here lies Andrew, 1972 to 1979. To this day, I've tried to come up with explanations. Maybe the mother had some kind of mental illness. Maybe the grief had driven her to believe the doll was her son. Or maybe it was all just a sick prank. But what I can't shake, what still chills me, is the fact that the name on the gravestone matched the doll exactly. Tyler and I never babysat again after that night. Even now, when I think back, I can feel that same cold shiver crawl up my spine. We're still friends today, but we almost never bring it up. And when we do, we always end with the same question. What the hell actually happened that night? Was it just a broken woman's delusion? Or was it something much darker